Does washing your hair every day make your scalp more oily? Is biotin helpful for hair growth? Do sulfates damage your hair? These are just some of the hair myths we're going to bust today. I'm Dr. Sam Ellis, and I'm a board-certified dermatologist. I'm here to help you understand your skin and hair and find skincare and hair care products that work for you. If you like what you see, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Very similar to the skincare world on social media, there is a lot of bad or incorrect information floating out there on social media regarding hair and hair care practices and what is good for your hair, what is bad for your hair, or what just doesn't do anything for your hair at all. So that's why I wanted to address some hair care myths to make sure that if you're investing in your hair or if you're doing certain practices with your hair, that you're actually going to see benefit from them and not do more harm or just waste your time. Also, if you want some more background information on hair and hair anatomy and hair physiology, I have an entire YouTube video dedicated to some very specific hair facts or questions about hair that come up a lot. I also have an entire YouTube video on hair loss specifically. So if either of those topics interest you, you should check them out as well. Let's get into the first myth, which is washing your hair every day will make your scalp more oily. This is absolutely false. How much oil your scalp produces is predetermined by your genetics and your hormones, and any external hair care practices like washing or anything that you're using on your scalp or hair on a regular basis cannot train your scalp to make more or less oil. Your scalp is going to produce as much oil as it wants to, no matter what you do. I felt that this was really important to clarify, especially for my friends out there who have a particularly oily scalp, because they've almost been shamed into not washing their hair as frequently because they're worried it's going to increase how much oil their scalp continues to make. But no, if you have a lot of oil on your scalp and you feel like you need to wash your hair more frequently, even every day, to remove that and not have a greasy hair feel or look, that's fine. Which is actually an excellent segue into my next hair care myth, which is washing your hair every day is bad for you. So I would say this is generally false. However, it also depends on the other hair care practices that accompany your hair washing. So a couple of things we know about hair and damaging the hair is that both prolonged exposure to water as well as heat exposure, both can damage the hair. So if you're washing your hair every day and then you're letting it stay wet for a prolonged period of time, for example, washing your hair and then putting it up in a bun and having it stay wet for 4, 5, 6 hours or even wet overnight, that could be problematic because it's going to make your hair more susceptible to breakage. Also, if you're washing your hair every day and then doing a significant amount of heat styling, whether that's blow drying or using a hot tool like a straightener or a curling iron, you may be doing more harm than good to your hair by washing it and styling it every single day. If you do feel the need to wash your hair every single day, whether that's because you have a very oily scalp or you do intense exercise every day and you want to minimize odor, I think the best thing to do is to really focus your washing on the scalp. That's where a lot of the oiliness and dirt comes from. It's not like you need to remove debris that has built up on your hair shaft every single day because it doesn't accumulate that quickly. Also, minimizing daily heat styling that may accompany daily hair washing is another way to ensure that your hair does not get overly damaged by washing it every single day. So I guess this is all to say that it is possible to do increased damage to your hair by washing it every day, but if you have gentle hair care practices, you don't have to worry about it. Also, if you're someone who does wash their hair every day and heat styles it every single day and you're not noticing any undesirable changes to the texture or the tone of your hair, absolutely keep doing it. There's no reason to change your hair care practices if you're happy with how your hair is with what you're doing. The next myth that you guys wanted me to debunk was whether or not bond repairing hair treatments like Olaplex, do they actually work? So it's not all marketing BS. This bond building ingredient that's patented by Olaplex does work. Now, whether or not you see a noticeable difference in your hair when you use the product is going to vary based on how damaged your hair is and what kind of damage your hair has. Just for a little bit of context, your hair is made up of keratin, and keratin is a protein, and each hair strand is made up of millions of strands of keratin that are held together by various types of chemical bonds. One of those bonds are called disulfide bonds, and they're actually the strongest bonds in your hair, but they can be broken by many different types of damage. So UV exposure, perming, bleach, friction, there's a lot of things that can damage your hair and break those disulfide bonds. And so when you're able to repair those disulfide bonds, the hair generally becomes less fragile and tends to look better too. Now, when you repair those disulfide bonds in your hair, that repaired hair is never going to be as strong or have as as much integrity as the original hair had before any of those disulfide bonds were ever broken. So it's something to keep in mind that generally you do need to repeat the process of using these bond builders over time to maintain your hair strength. It's also really important to follow the manufacturer's guidelines on how to properly use the product. I feel like so many people, when it comes to any type of hair product, don't see the results that they're expecting, but they're also not following the instructions quite to a T. And that is not to shame any of you out there who have incorrectly used a hair care product, because I have done my fair share of messing up the instructions. Let's go on to the next myth, which is biotin helps your hair grow. No. This is false, unless you are biotin deficient, which is incredibly rare. The fact of the matter is that if you have appropriate biotin levels in your system, if you supplement with additional biotin, you will not see any increased hair growth. That is what the data shows. Now, there are certain hair loss supplements like Nutrafol and Viviscal that have good data to support hair growth in certain populations, and they do contain biotin, but we can't attribute the hair growth that happens from taking these supplements to the biotin specifically. It's more about the entire complex working together. It's also important to note that biotin supplementation can falsely alter certain laboratory results if you're having your blood drawn. So it's really important that your healthcare team knows that you're taking biotin if you're having certain lab tests done. Speaking of hair growth, let's go to the next hair myth, which is if you pluck out one gray hair, two will grow in its place. It may seem like that because once we notice a gray hair, it can feel like every day after that new gray hairs are cropping up, but manipulation of a gray hair, or really any type of hair, by plucking it or cutting it or shaving it does not make you grow two in its place or have any additional hair growth from that follicle. In that same vein, there's also the myth that more frequent hair trimming will make your hair grow faster. False. Hair growth initiates at the scalp or at the root and extends downward. So any manipulation of the ends of your hair is going to have zero effect on the speed of your hair growth. That being said, more frequent hair trimming helps remove the broken or damaged ends of your hair, which may allow your hair to grow longer and not prematurely break off. Another myth about hair growth is that brushing your hair more frequently or brushing your hair 100 strokes a day will make your hair grow thicker or faster. When I was a little girl, I totally remember doing this because I had heard that myth. But hair manipulation of any kind, including brushing, actually increases damage to hair. So there's something called the cuticle, which is the outermost portion of your hair. You can think of it like armor or protection for your hair. And anytime you introduce excess friction, like combing or brushing frequently, you damage the cuticle and the hair becomes less protected and more prone to breakage. So really minimizing hair brushing is going to help your hair grow the best. The next claim that was submitted as a hair myth is that ponytails cause hair loss or hair thinning. So this is actually true if the ponytail is tight. In dermatology, there's a phenomenon called traction alopecia, which is hair loss due to frequent pulling or traction on the hair root. And that can be caused by tight ponytails or braids or any other hairstyle that is constantly pulling on the hair. Something that's really important to note is that traction alopecia, the hair loss due to that frequent pulling, can be permanent. So it can cause so much damage to the hair follicle that that hair follicle forms a scar and is never able to produce new hair again. So it's really important to keep in mind when you're thinking about how you want to style your hair. But also, this is only if you're styling your hair like this frequently or over and over and over again. So if you wear a tight hairstyle from time to time, it's no big deal. But if that's how you always wear your hair, it's something to really be mindful about. Ponytails and other tight hairstyles can also cause breakage to the hair. So not necessarily hair loss from the root or from the scalp, but breaking the hair in the mid-shaft area, which can make the hair appear thinner. This is particularly true if you put your hair up when it's wet, because when your hair is wet is when it's the most fragile. So just make sure that if you are going to do tight hairstyles, that your hair is completely dry first. The next myth is that dry shampoo is bad for your hair or will make your hair fall out. So all dry shampoo really is made up of starch, and starch is a molecule that has the ability to absorb oil in a very significant way. And so when you're using dry shampoo, essentially all you're doing is depositing a molecule that it's absorbing oil and making your hair appear less greasy. So in and of itself, dry shampoo is not bad or damaging to your scalp or to your hair at all. But there might be a few different reasons why your hair doesn't feel as healthy when you use dry shampoo regularly. One reason is as you space out your hair washings, you're probably also spacing out how often you are conditioning your hair. So although your roots feel dry, which is kind of what you want, your ends can start to feel dry or straw-like as as well. So if you are spacing out your washings because you're using dry shampoo, it can be really helpful to use a hair oil to nourish the ends of your hair so they don't feel as dry or are not as prone to breakage. A lot of people also feel like they shed more when they use dry shampoo, like when they get in the shower, a lot more hair comes out. But really that's because you are normally shedding 50 to 200 hairs every single day. And when you wash your hair, that helps release some of those hairs that have left your scalp but have been trapped among your hair tresses. And so if you have not washed your hair in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days, when you go to shower, a lot of that hair that you've shed over the past several days kind of comes out all at once. And so it can look like you're losing a lot more hair, but you really were just losing hair at the exact same rate. The last thing I'll say about dry shampoo is that if you have an inflammatory scalp disease like seborrheic dermatitis, also known as dandruff, oil on your scalp can perpetuate inflammation. And so rather than just trying to soak up some of that oil with dry shampoo, it actually can be a lot more helpful to actually wash your hair and remove that oil entirely from anywhere near your scalp on a regular basis. So for my patients who have inflammatory scalp conditions, I do discourage dry shampoo use most of the time. The final myth I'll tackle today is that sulfates and silicones are bad for your hair. False. First of all, what are sulfates? Sulfates are a category of cleansing agent known as a surfactant, and that means that they are able to remove sebum and dirt from your hair. However, they are so good at removing that oil that they can also impart a negative charge on the hair, which can make the hair appear dry or look frizzy. Because that is a known issue with sulfate surfactants, most products will contain other ingredients that sort of counterbalance or mitigate that particular side effect so that when you use a surfactant cleanser, your hair does not look dry or depleted. Sulfates are also not skin irritants. They don't cause cancer. So I actually don't know why those myths float out there, but I wouldn't want those particular concerns to prevent you from using a sulfate shampoo if that's what your hair really needs. And then let's pivot to silicones. Silicones are an amazing molecule for hair care because they create this really nice film on your hair that is not only protective from friction, but also protects your hair from heat damage. They can also prevent water loss from the hair and can make your hair look more shiny and more brilliant. So I'm a big fan of silicones, and some of my very favorite hair oils are silicone based. All right, I'm going to wrap up our first hair care myths video with that. But if there are additional hair care myths that you would like me to address, absolutely put it in the comments below so that we can do this all again. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.